Well, we're in the middle of week 2 of Blues regular season hockey, and some notable trends have started to emerge after 5 games, particularly among the Blues defensemen. So, will their defense score be enough this season? Which players can we count on? Which ones can't we count on? And what else are we seeing from the forwards and the goaltending that is significant after 5 games? We're going to talk about all that and more today on Note News.
Joel Hofer has more points than Steven Stamkos.
It's crazy. I will add, I'll raise you one. He has more points than Steven Stamkos and Zach Hyman combined. How about that?
Mm-hmm.
How about that for a two-way player, huh? That was a lot of fun. We are in the middle of week 2 of Blues regular season hockey. As I said, they have played as of right now against the Minnesota Wild and the New York Islanders. It's been an up and down week. Pretty disappointing loss to the Wild, followed by a pretty exciting win over the Islanders. They've got one more game tomorrow night against the Carolina Hurricanes, so we'll break that down later. But today we're gonna recap the games that have happened this week, discuss some of our big takeaways from those games, and then towards the end of the episode, we'll get into a more general discussion of the state of the Blues defense so far this season through 5 games. We're going to overreact a little bit, but we're going to try not to too much. Before we get into all that, we'd really appreciate if you would like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and follow and rate the podcast wherever you listen. For 5 stars, we hope. We really appreciate all that. That goes a long way for us. And we're also on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Note News Pod. If you want to follow us there and check out some of the other content we post. Let's go ahead and get into it. Why don't we go ahead and get the bad out of the way like we've been doing? I feel like for the past few episodes, whenever we break down good versus bad, we start with the bad. So let's keep that going. Let's start with this really disappointing 4-1 loss to the Minnesota Wild. Alec, how did this game make you feel?
Awful. It was kind of a total walking back of like everything that had been building over the past, however long. And just bad in every phase and all. Yeah, just it was a not fun watch.
Yeah, not fun at all. Pretty much right down to the end there. To sort of summarize the flow of the game for those that may not have seen it, the Blues went down 1-0 in the first period off a power play goal from Minnesota. They gave up a shorthanded goal against Minnesota in the second period to go down 2-0. They scored. Minnesota scored again pretty early on into the third period to make it 3-0. Matthew Joseph scored for the Blues, his first goal as a Blue, which was assisted by Zach Bolduc and Philip Broberg. So that was great. And then that was all the goals. That was all the goals from the game. That was it. There were no other goals scored, and definitely not a goal scored from the Minnesota Wild goalie. That did not happen. I don't really know what else to say. I mean, what did you make of? We can talk about it. What did you make of that play? I think it was Buchnevich that sort of tried to dump the puck in and just put it like right in Philip Gustafson's chest and let him shoot it down the ice, right?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of felt like the team was sort of checked out and out of gas, and that was really like the nail in the coffin. I don't know that I have any huge takes from it because Booch has been so awesome for every other game, but
Yeah.
I struggle to find any good in that Wild game. Like it was kind of one of those, like burn the tape, like hoping we can move past that and not have that happen again.
Yeah. Here's what we'll do, okay? Why don't I tell you some of the good that I noticed, and then you can tell me what went wrong. How does that sound? And I guess some of my good takeaways are pretty easily refuted, or there are some aspects. I'll just get into it. You'll see. I will say that the Blues had decent enough expected goal metrics, particularly from Jordan Kyrou, Jake Neighbors, Matthew Joseph, and Pavel Buchnevich. Um, so that meant, the shot quality that those four in particular were generating were decent enough, I think. And through the first two periods, I think they were playing okay. I mean, they were down 3-0, but it was or down 2-0, I guess, after two periods, but it didn't seem like the hockey being played on the ice was quite as lopsided as the score sort of dictated. They did take a lot of shots. We've talked about one of the flaws that we've seen with recent Blues teams is sort of a reluctance to shoot, right? Really pass happy, and they sure did shoot a lot in this game. I think through two periods, it was something like they had 56 shots to Minnesota's 27. And by the end of the game, I believe it was somewhere around like 72 shot attempts total. But they missed the net 20 times, or maybe a few more than that. So for the most part, the team as a whole was taking poor quality shots. I sort of mentioned Kyrou, Neighbors, Joseph, and Buchnevich. They did okay, sort of on that front, but the team as a whole was taking. I don't know if it was the quality of shots were poor, or if they were just like they were just off for the night, or what. But they were missing the net way too much. It is important to generate those shots, but if you're going to do it like that, then you're not going to win many hockey games. So that was a little disappointing to see that. So they did lose. Those are sort of my positive-ish takeaways. But what did you make of the game, and where did you see that game fall apart for the Blues, and what was like the big reason they lost, I guess?
hmm I think I liked what you put, that everything just seemed off. That's kind of how I feel it too. It's just it felt like they had an off night, whether it was preparation, whether it just like they weren't feeling it. But to me, in the first period, they came out, looked kind of flat. Sort of, as you said, started to come back towards the end of the first period and then into the second period. Like, we're playing harder, but also I think the reason that they lost, in my opinion, is that the Wild are a good team, and they made a lot of the same mistakes that we saw in like the Sharks game. And good teams are going to make you pay for those mistakes. So like that first goal, or the shorthanded goal, they were like very clear and obvious like giveaways and mistakes that just you can't have if you want to have a winning product, and they led to goals and they led to a loss. So I think it was sloppy play, and I think that it was just, yeah, a bad night essentially.
Yeah, yeah, just a bad night, like you said, sort of all around. I think in large part, a lot of that was uh, because of the defense. In terms of letting in four goals, I guess we can say three because the empty netter that they gave up at the end was an empty netter. So, but the offense also, I mean, it was just an all around bad game. Why don't we just leave it at that? I must confess, I sort of tuned out a little bit. I was watching, but it just made me sad, and I tuned out a little towards the end of that one. But I will say it's not often that you get to see a goalie goal, and so even though it was against the Blues, I mean, it was at least interesting to see, cool to see. Were you watching when he scored the goalie goal?
Yeah, I saw it.
Yeah. I think the last one, it was either Linus Olmark or Tristan Jarry, I believe. Maybe last season. Can't remember which one was which, but anyways, why don't we pivot to talk about the New York Islanders game last night?
The fun
Um,
stuff.
the fun stuff. the Blues came away with a 1-0 win in overtime. They got that OT winner from Jake Neighbors, and it was assisted by Philip Broberg and Joel Hofer. I got to tell you, man, that play from start to finish was just chef's kiss. That was so good.
Yeah.
I think, wasn't it Buchnevich played it back to Hofer before that play started. They got, the fresh legs on the ice, and Hofer, being such a good puck handler, made such a big difference in that game. I thought, right up to the end, that really nice pass off the left side wall to Philip Broberg, who skated really well, and dropped just a beautiful assist right up to Jake Neighbors, who all he had to do was tap it in, and he did. It was so great. So that was awesome. What did you see that you liked in particular from this game?
I mean, this was kind of, you come out, have a stinker like the Wild game. You hope that it fires the team up and gets them to like want to win in the next one. And like, boy, did they show that this time around. So it was just overall like a very like reassuring is the word I'm looking for win. I think the most exciting stuff was probably the offensive creativity, and I know it was a 1-0 finish and an OT winner, but there were like some really good chances. I guess we'll get into specifics more later, probably, but I do think as a whole, I thought the team played really good offensively, even though it ended up being the way that it did. Not everyone, but a lot of players looked really, really nice.
Yeah, for sure. In particular, Joel Hofer.
That too. That I didn't mention that. Yeah,
had a fantastic game. It was a shutout. It was a really good rebound from that rougher game that we saw from him against San Jose, where he gave up quite a few goals. But he rebounded nicely with a shutout, saved 34 shots. Had a line of 2.56 goals saved above expected. So really good stuff from the young goalie there. And then, as I said, assisted the OT winner. So you love to see that.
He has already tied his career high for shutouts in a season at 1.
There you go. Hopefully we see many more. He scored a goalie goal in the AHL, didn't he?
I believe so. I know he at least got a point. Yeah.
I think he was getting points a fair bit in the. I have not looked at the numbers, so I don't know. But I'm pretty sure he got a goalie goal. So hopefully we'll see that from him soon. I think I texted you about this maybe last night. I think this may have been my favorite game of Blues hockey so far into the season. I think the biggest sort of competitor for that would be the first game against the Kraken with a 3-goal comeback in less than 2 minutes. That was pretty exciting. But I felt worse about Blues hockey for a longer period of that game than I did in this one. I just felt like it was a really competitive hockey game. It was super close. It was a really good matchup with the Islanders. I feel like these two teams were sort of on a really similar level. And the later you got into the game, it was like the more suspenseful it was. So I really appreciated the hockey that was being played last night. It was a lot of fun.
For sure.
Any other players you want to highlight? Maybe Zach Bolduc. Do you want to talk about what you saw from him last night in particular, or maybe even over the 2 games even?
I think Bolduc has, even though he's been given like different expectations, kind of, I don't know, maybe just me, but seemingly randomly. I think he's been playing up to it. He's playing really physical, which I always knew, like, or sort of his profile was always to be physical, but I didn't ever think he would get like this aggressive about it. Like, it's looking like he's going out there like to make hits. So maybe it's just him coming into his own in the NHL. But yeah, Bolduc is flying around the ice, and is one of those players that I was talking about when I just said like there's a lot of creative offense there. I think he's shown some really nice ability, and his I think his hands are coming along too, which is a good thing to see because that's always been sort of a drawback of Bolduc, is he has really slow hands. So yeah, I mean he's gonna shoot puck on net, and when he does it's a thing of beauty to see. Bolduc's a really fun kid, really fun player, and playing pretty well so far.
Yeah, in particular last night, like you said, really physical. I like the compete level that we're seeing from Bolduc in this week in particular. He had 5 shots. I think pretty sure all of them were blocked, but it was good to see him, taking those chances. Was it the Minnesota game where he had a couple really good chances, or was it the Vegas game? I can't remember which one that was. But he was right in the crease and had a couple good looks in one of those 2 games. So
I don't
um,
remember either.
I agree with you. I really like the physicality and the level of competitiveness we're seeing from Bolduc early on in the season. Um, One last thing I want to note before we sort of give our takeaways is that Nick Leddy did sit this game against the Islanders. Our previous episode, I was bashing on him pretty hard after the first 3 games of the Blues season for some of his defensive lapses, I guess you could say. He sat, and Ryan Suter took over the top pair, and then P.O. Joseph slotted in on that bottom pair. So I think it was because of sort of like a day-to-day injury situation. I think I saw that Letty, blocked a pretty fast shot in the previous game, and was just, I guess, against the Wild, and so he was taking a break. So he will probably be back. It seems like Drew Bannister is, at least from what he said, it seems like he wants to continue to give Letty the chance to rebound, which I can appreciate. But we'll sort of get into this discussion later. But that's sort of, I guess, a little bit of an update on that last game. Why don't we get into sort of our takeaways for the week, or these 2 games in particular. And we'll do this with sort of a new thing that we're doing here at Note News. Always trying to come up with fun Note News themed podcast segments. So we'll do high note and low note for this one. Why don't we start with your low note for the week, or at least for the Islanders game, or I mean either one. You know what I'm saying.
Well, it was present in both games. The special teams are pretty bad. I think the penalty kill is a lot worse than I expected it to be.
Yeah.
It's just so passive, and they're really playing that style that's so frustrating to watch because it's like they will let the other team do whatever they want to them, which is just not a good way to go about it. And even like typically strong defensive players like Thomas and Buchnevich are not looking very confident or very like sure of their own play on the PK. And then the second unit is just awful. Really, it's pretty. I think that's the case for both the power play and the penalty kill, because the second power
Mm-hmm.
play unit also just looks anemic. They like are so out of there's no coordination. Like it's so slow. It's bulky. I'm not sure if it's Braden Shen getting that center spot. Like if he isn't the right guy to run the power play anymore. I don't know if it's Sod not being on the same page with some of the young skaters. I think Broberg's been okay as the quarterback, but outside of that, I'm not sure there's been a ton of good. I guess the top power play unit looks pretty good, in my opinion. I think that one, like the results haven't really been there, but I think that their process looks good.
Mm-hmm.
I think Neighbors especially has had some really good looks. I mean, Kyrou and Booch too, have all had some really good looks. And it just haven't found the back of the net yet. But I would say outside of that first power play, it's well, But then again, last night they did look terrible. So like
Yeah, I
couldn't
mean,
enter the zone. So
just like really weak and uncompetitive power plays, it seems like. Yeah, you're right.
yeah,
Um,
that's my low note.
yeah, not really loving what we're seeing from the Blues special teams. I would agree. My low note for the week is I'm going to continue my trend of being mean to Nick Leddy and pick him as my low note, just because of this the Minnesota game. Obviously, he didn't play against the New York Islanders last night, like I said, and so I was hesitant to pick this as my low note for that reason. But I think it relates pretty well to your low note, particularly on the penalty kill. Just to sort of use an example of a real head scratcher, a real disappointing moment from that 4-1 loss to the Wild. It was the first Wild goal on the power play where uh, Kaprizov just sort of sliced through, and he found Hartman sort of on the other side, and Hartman scored. Um, and I think what went wrong was Parayko was marking Kaprizov. That was his man. It was on his side of the ice. But the issue with that one was pretty much Nick Leddy straying from his side, also
Yeah.
trying to keep an eye on Kaprizov. And, it's understandable ish because Kaprizov is such an elite player. Like maybe he just needs more people guarding him at times, but you just can't let someone else come in, the back door the way that Hartman did, because he really didn't have a lot of difficulty getting to the net and scoring once he got that pass over. So I don't know why Nick Leddy tried to come over and help Parayko out. I don't know why he didn't stick to his side of the ice, but that was just like a really disappointing example of some of a continuing trend of disappointing play from Nick Leddy. And if you want to hear some of the earlier examples, check out our previous episode. I try not to be too mean, but I didn't really hold back on that one. I was pretty disappointed with him. Why don't we switch to high notes now? Who or what is your high note of the week so far?
I am gonna go with Hofer. I think like less so for this week. The goaltending as a whole has still been a strength, and I know Binnington didn't have a great game in that Minnesota game, but I would
Yeah,
argue like that first goal was pretty much entirely on Nick Leddy. Like I don't know what you want a goalie to do in that scenario, and I can't remember which one, but there was another one that's just like Binnington did really everything he could. Like the team let him down more than Binnington had a bad game, I'd argue. Um, and then we get to the Islanders game, and Joel Hofer outdueled Ilya Sorokin, who is like playing like a top three, top five goalie in the NHL right now,
mm-hmm.
and always has been for pretty much his entire career so far. Yeah, Hofer had a stellar night. Really settled in as the backup role, and honestly, like I wouldn't be surprised if he takes some more playing time from Binnington. Definitely not like I'm not saying he's going to take the starting job at all. That's not going to happen. They're paying Binnington, but like as far as backups go, maybe like a 60-40 split, probably more like 65-35, but
I wouldn't hate
uh,
it. That's the crazy part.
but Binnington probably would, and you want to keep that guy happy.
For
Um,
sure. Yeah. I mean, at the
yeah,
very least, it's good to know that if Bennington, I don't know, God forbid, has an injury that ends his season, or goes through a stretch of poor play or something like that, then yeah, it's good to know that you have someone like Joel Hofer who has that potential and that capability, ready to sort of take over if need be. Sort of on the point of comparing Hofer's performance to Ilya Sorokin's last night. Sorokin is currently ninth in the NHL in the goals saved above expected metric. He's got a 2.7. And Joel Hofer's, lower down the line there, but I mean, Ilya Sorokin is consistently one of the top goalies, like you said, in the league, and obviously, I mean, I don't think you can say that that one's play affected the other last night, but it was cool to see in a direct comparison over the course of the game, those two having. I mean, he had a great game too, like great games back and forth, and really happy to see Joel Hofer come out on top in that one. Um, on a goalie note, did you see the Jake Ottinger contract?
Yeah, yeah, wild.
What do you make? No, he's on the Dallas Stars, not the Wild. But what do you make of that?
Oh, I don't know, man. I mean, I feel like I don't know.
He got
I
the
feel like I've
same.
always been so high as a Swayman, right?
Yeah, he got the same deal as Swayman and the same deal as Sorokin. And then I guess same AAV as Linus Olmark. But yeah, I mean they're paying him.
I I am such a Jake Ottinger defender. I actually don't hate it for the Stars at all. I know a lot of people are calling it an overpay though for what he's shown up to this point. Uh, I do think it's more telling to me that I think we're still in a very why I say it's wild is because the pendulum hasn't swung back to being less player friendly. It's still very much favoring the players, and like goalies are kind of can demand what they will. And I guess,
Yeah.
well, maybe not. Maybe that's not the right way to put it. But like, I guess that's just the going rate for a good goalie now. And for them to all get the same AAV means that there will be less negotiation because there's less like to go off of. So
Hmm. Yeah, I
yeah,
mean, people say it's like the most important position in sports, right? It has one of the highest impact levels on team performance, team outcomes. So I think it just makes sense to pay your goalies, honestly. And I think you're right. We are seeing sort of a I think the phrase being used sort of lately is a reset in the goalie market, with particularly like the big name was Jeremy Swayman signing for 8 by 8.25, and that's the contract that Ottinger got. But
Swayman definitely set the market
yeah,
this season.
yeah, which makes you wonder what Shesterkin's going to get, right? I mean,
Yeah, the
he
rumors are crazy.
yeah, like north of 12, something like that. So
Yeah,
that that would be crazy. Make him the highest paid goalie ever. So that would be crazy. Kind of makes you appreciate the cap hit of 6 million that we're getting for Jordan Bennington, right? Um, who maybe I'm not trying to say he is as elite as like a Shesterkin or I don't. I mean, I don't even know if he's on the same level as a Swayman or an Ottinger, but he's good. I think he's at least in the conversation. I made a bold prediction that he'd win the Vezina, so you never know. Anyways, yes, I too think that Joel Hofer was a high note for this week. The first goalie in history to have a shutout and an assist on the game winner or something like that. Someone might want to have to check me on that one, but I saw something along those lines, so that was pretty cool. My high note, and this can sort of shift us into our next bit where we'll talk about the defense. My high note is Philip Broberg. Um, I I think I was already a little high on him coming into the season. And I think a large part of that had to do with the excitement around the offer sheets and getting a young defenseman who is NHL ready and all that. I think was a big part of it. But what we've seen from him through the first 5 games is super encouraging. I've really liked what we've seen from Philip Broberg. I know this isn't this week, but we saw him score that goal in the first game, which was awesome. Um, and then more on a point of his recent play. What's the stat? He's got five. He's got a 5 game point streak to start his Blues career, which is the most in in Blues history among defensemen. So super encouraging to see that offensive capability from him. He, like I said, he assisted the game winner last night. Got that absolutely filthy pass up to Jake Neighbors. Maybe not filthy. I feel like when I use the word filthy, I'm more talking about like a really saucy kind of play, but just a really smart pass to sort of get it just out of reach of whoever was guarding Neighbors, not far enough that Sorokin could make a play on it, but just right in the right spot that Neighbors could knock it in. So I've really liked what we've seen from Philip Broberg, and he's my high note of the week. So are you on the Broberg train yet?
Yeah, I am now. This game was the me getting on the Broberg train. Definitely a little late to the party there, but I mean the other thing too that's so, I guess, exciting about him and his play so far
Mhm.
is the level of defense around him, and how if he can look this good, like with so much else not working around him, then I think there's so much more like room for growth, and like the ceiling could be even higher. Because like, yeah, coming into the year, like we didn't know like who Philip Broberg was as an NHL player. He just hadn't had the time, like
Yeah.
literally just a moldable ball of clay. And whoever's coaching him up is making us their Venus de Milo, I guess.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
but yeah,
I think I think I'm ready to go ahead and buy the jersey. um, I think I'm
I
ready
like
to
it.
change my all-time Blues draft team and add in Philip
Mm,
Broberg there. Um, Book
understandable.
it. He's going to be a Blues legend. No, but
Understandable.
it is super exciting when you think about the larger context of the retool, right? That the Blues, it's still early. Like we said, the sample size isn't big enough yet. But the fact that he is making an impact, that he came ready to play in the first 5 games, and he's already making an impact offensively, is super encouraging. I sort of broke down, I think on one of our episodes, and definitely wrote an article about it over at Bleed and Blue, but sort of broke down why I thought the offer sheets move was perfect for this retool. And it's because it got NHL ready uh, players to the Blues, that are young and can stick around for a while, right? It accomplishes both of those things. And one of the chronic issues that we've seen with the Blues is has to do with the defense. And um, there are like issues with defense among defensemen, and there are also issues with offense among our defensemen, right? But it's really refreshing to see a young player like Broberg come in and have an impact in both of those ways, and a positive impact, mind you, um, so early in the season. So I just I love him so far. I
Are
really
we
enjoy it.
ready to say that it was a underpay?
I don't know if we're ready to say that.
If he
I
keeps playing like this,
If he keeps playing like this, yes, maybe so. Um, but I don't want to jinx him. So
Dougie Dimes was so far ahead of the curve. We could never have even known.
there was no hope. No one could even hope to keep up with Dougie Dimes. Um, that sort of brings us to, I think, the bigger conversation that we should have for this episode in particular, uh, talking about the state of the defense for the Blues. This is something that we've revisited a lot already on Note News. We sort of broke down the issues with the defense last year. We've analyzed whether or not we did a lot of stuff over the offseason, sort of analyzing how we felt about the defense, and whether or not it would hold up. But I think it's worth revisiting, and sort of updating our thoughts on the Blues defenseman core. Um, and why don't we go ahead and start with Broberg and Justin Falk? They are playing so well together as a pair so far, generating a lot of offense. They have not allowed a goal yet, which is crazy. Um, like what do you make of this second pair of Broberg and Falk? I know last week I was sort of saying, should we just make them the top pair? Like, do we go that far? And I don't know. I don't know if that's the answer or not. But what do you make of the performance we've seen so far from Broberg and Falk?
I think I don't know if I'd go as far to say Broberg and Falk become the top pair. I think I would like to see Broberg and Pareko play together first,
Yeah,
and then maybe move Suter down. And but yeah, yeah, they've been awesome. They've been so awesome. Um,
yeah,
look so complimentary. And I think Falk is playing better too. Like I know you asked him to step up this year in our X Factors episode,
yeah,
and I think that he has. I think he really looks good enough defensively and offensively is Justin Falk and like is Justin Falk when he's on. So
yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I don't have a ton of like they're moving the puck really well. They're Broberg's playing physical and Falk's being a little bit more shifty. Like they're just so complimentary is the big thing. So
For
it's
sure.
fun.
Yeah, I think I'd agree that I would also like to see Broberg and Pareko. But I feel like honestly, this Broberg and Falk pairing is the only defensive pair or forward line that has been consistent through all 5 games, right? It's the only combination that we've seen in all 5 games, at least for longer than a shift or two. So the fact that they are continuing to perform well makes me a little more hesitant to split it up because I think they've got good chemistry, like you were saying. They've got complementary skill sets. But I would like to see what Broberg and Pareko can do because I think Pareko still has a lot to offer as a top pair defenseman. I just think
Right.
he's been hampered by his whoever's playing with him. In this case, up to this point, it's mostly been Nick Leddy. So um, I will say for the Justin Falk and Philip Broberg pair, their expected goals against numbers aren't great. They're sitting at 3.76 expected goals against, which is the 7th highest in the league for an NHL pair or for a defensive pair, according to Natural Stat Trick. So um, I think that what that says to me is even though they haven't allowed a goal, they're giving up shots that are too good. Basically, the quality of the shots that they are allowing is too good, too high, and they need to clean that up if they want to sustain this success that they've had. Um, but I mean, if it works, it works, and so far it's been working. What's another point that you want to talk about? Maybe not with Broberg and Falk, but with the rest of the defenseman core in general.
Um, I think you hit on the point of Letty does not look good. And I
Mhm.
agree. I think the other thing is, for me at least, Kessel just doesn't quite look ready for NHL time. We were looking for him to take a big step this year, and he hasn't. He looks slow. He looks timid. I think he could probably use some time playing at a lower level of competition. Excuse me, before we see him again. And that's kind of this happens with young defensemen, especially like Kessel. Wasn't this surefire like I don't know, Owen Power or whatever, like defensive prospects. So yeah, I think I'm ready to say that Kessel probably shouldn't be on the NHL team. He just mostly for his own development, like um, so yeah.
Yeah, I was sort of watching him and honestly thought he was okay, and I think I mentioned that to you. That I thought he looked okay, and I think most of that to me was he was blocking shots and getting his body in front of the puck a fair bit, which is good. Um, but you were like you said a little more hesitant to go that far with Matthew Kessel, and upon further investigation, I think I agree with you. I think you're probably right. He just hasn't been good at protecting the puck when he has it, which is sort
Yeah.
of what I've seen. He has too many giveaways in the defensive zone. Really not what you want to see there.
I
Yeah,
think
like
it's
you said.
I think it's his game without the puck is okay to like pretty solid, but with
Mhm.
the puck, he's been pretty bad.
Yeah, yeah, I think you're right. So would you take him off the bottom pair, or would you keep playing him because he's young and because it's the bottom pair? Like, what would you do with Kessel?
I mean, I feel like I feel like I've seen enough to say that probably the thing is that I'm also pretty low on P.O. Joseph though, so I guess I'm not entirely sure, but I think playing in the AHL could do him some good, but at least I would take him off the bottom pair and probably um, give probably Scotty P his last run.
Yeah, why don't we pivot there? I think I'd agree. Matthew Kessel. I don't know if I'd send him to the AHL, but I think I would. If I was Drew Bannister, I would be more willing to give other guys chances on a more consistent basis. Like Matthew Kessel's been playing a lot. So Scott Perunovich, where is he? Why
I
why isn't
mean,
he playing?
he had a really bad preseason, and we said it
Yeah.
kind of felt like the last chance for him, who didn't excite there. So it does kind of seem like the organization's out on him. We'll see when the lineups come out for the remaining games, but I'd say if by like the 10th game of the season, if he hasn't played at all, I would question why he's even on the team at that point.
Yeah. We talked about, I think we sort of talked about this before. I just, I'm not convinced. Okay. Let me think about this here. I have said multiple times, and I still think that the Blues are a playoff capable team, as in I think they are capable of making the playoffs. I have also said I do not think they will advance very far in the playoffs. It if they advance at all. And I don't want to say throw in the towel on the season to make way for like the development of some young guys, but I think the Blues and I think Drew Bannister are kind of kidding themselves if they think they're gonna win the Stanley Cup this year. I mean, I would really like to see a little more willingness to try and let the young guys figure it out. Because I mean, Nick Leddy and Torrey Krug and names like that, and Ryan Suter, they're not going to be the ones that from the defense core lead the Blues into the next successful period of Blues hockey whenever that comes. It's going to have to be someone that is either a young player, a Blues prospect, or not with the team yet. So I would just personally just see what you get from Scott Perunovich. Like maybe that'll come if the Blues start to fall out of it or something like that. I guess through 5 games they do have a winning record, and um, I think the value that is provided by playing winning hockey, even if you're not going to compete for Stanley Cup, the value provided by playing meaningful hockey is um, very high. I think that's really important for a retooling team or a team in the position that the Blues are in. So I don't want to say just pack it in and play the young guys, uh, but I will say don't pack it in, but still play the young guys on occasion. So I don't know who would you sit for Scott Perunovich if not. I mean, you said Matthew Kessel already, and I guess if Letty is injured, then it sort of makes sense to sort of work through Kessel, some combination of like Kessel, P.O. Joseph, and Scotty P. Um, but I mean, would you want to see more consistent playing time from Perunovich, or what do you make of that?
To me, I think Kessel, Joseph, and Perunovich are all somewhat interchangeable in that none of them have showed anything up to this point. Maybe not anything, but their night to night level of play is not good enough.
Yeah.
Um, I would probably give Joseph a little bit more run, sit Kessel, and if one of those two is just atrocious, then put Kessel back in for them.
Yeah, I think I'd agree. I think the sort of the pedigree and the ceiling is higher for Pio Joseph and Perunovic, and so that's sort of why I want to see more playing time for them. You said it before, like it felt like Perunovic he was just so exciting for a while there, you know. And it's
Hmm.
been disappointing to see him sort of stall out and not be able to put it together. But we wish him the best. I think it's safe to say that. Why don't we pivot now? Talk about Pio Joseph a little bit because you said you weren't really loving what you were seeing from him in this Islanders game last night. I will say I liked what I saw from Pio Joseph. I thought he was sort of pretty aggressive with the puck. He took 6 shots, 4 were blocked, but he was taking a lot of them from pretty deep in the offensive zone. So that is to be expected a fair bit. I thought that like sort of like I said, that aggression, that willingness to take that chance, take that shot was an encouraging sign from him. But what do you make of that sort of style of play that we're seeing from Pio Joseph? And do you want to see more of that, or what are your thoughts?
I mean, that's what if he's going to be valuable to the team, that's how he's going to have to play. So I
Yeah.
wouldn't say that it's like, I don't know, concerning or anything because this is like who he is as a player.
Hmm.
I just I've said it before in this episode, like I am low on P.O. Joseph, and I think it's because of just the amount. To me, he feels like another team Scott Perunovic, but maybe more offensive. And I don't know, he's gonna have to really offensively like output to convince me. I think versus like Broberg is obviously a different case. So
Yeah. Yeah. I think I sort of mentioned my thoughts. I want to see more Pio Joseph than Matthew Kessel, and um, I'm willing to sort of give him those looks, like I said, because he's a younger guy and could factor into the picture long term. But I wouldn't be moving him any higher than the third pair, I don't think. But I do think that what we saw last night was at least encouraging and a better game than when we saw him previously. Um, so that was cool. Why don't we wrap up talking about uh, Colton Pareko, Nick Leddy, and Ryan Suter, sort of talking about those three. Before we do get to those, I just want to hit all of our listeners and viewers with the plugs again. Like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and follow and rate the podcast wherever you listen, whether it's Spotify or Apple Podcasts. We really, really appreciate that. We love reading the reviews and hearing, hearing things in the comments and stuff like that. You can also leave comments on Spotify now. So if you want to leave a comment there, we would be able to see that. So that'd be really cool. We're also
and
on
thanks for
Instagram.
200 subs.
Yeah, 200 subs on YouTube. We appreciate that. That's awesome. Let's get to 300. So share Note News with family and friends that you think would enjoy it. But we're also on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Note News Pod, so you can follow along with us there as well. So Colton Pareko, Nicholas Leddy, and Ryan Suter. Now, what I saw in this Islanders game was a much better, much better play from Colton Pareko when he was playing without Nick Leddy. He was playing with Ryan Suter, right? Suter stepped up to the top pair. He played. Pareko played the most minutes for the Blues, and Suter was behind him, second most minutes. For what it's worth, I think Suter looked good, and I think he has looked good in the past few games. Right? I don't think that much of what we've seen from him is all that discouraging. I think he's even been a little bit surprising in the ways that he's been able to sort of positively contribute to the Blues, and the ways that he's been able to find success for the Blues have been a little bit surprising, but positively so. I think a lot of that is a veteran player who sort of knows who he is and is has been in the game long enough to know ways to contribute, or know how to contribute in multiple ways. Sort of my idea there, but I think it's kind of safe to say that Ryan Suter is not a long-term option on the top pair. He's 39, and they only have him for this year, right? So I mean, he's not going to be the answer long term. And also, given his age, his speed, he's pretty slow, and just his overall performance over the past few seasons, I don't think it's sustainable. I don't think it's a sustainable strategy for an extended period beyond maybe a couple games here and there. But what do you make of the Suter Pareko pairing up top?
I mean, I will say that I already think that the level of play we're seeing from Suter is like so much above what I thought it was going to be.
Hmm.
So I
Yeah,
will
I'd agree.
give Suter his flowers and give him his credit where I think he's earned it. And to that point, I don't know that I would say it isn't sustainable. I think I would expect it to drop off for sure. And definitely not like Suter shouldn't be the top pair for the rest of the season because there's just no upside there. Like there's really not much to do with that. Um, but I would say that he's like earned playing time and earned like kind of significant playing time. And if it's the top pair for a night, yeah, sure. Probably you'll want to slide him down and most likely move up Broberg or maybe if Letty can figure it out or see, find out. But yeah, I mean, he's been doing enough to me, and I'm kind of ready to, I don't know, say I was wrong on Ryan Suter. And props to the Blues scouting and player acquisition teams.
I don't think I'm quite ready to say I was wrong, because I don't know. I don't want to bash on Suter just because he's an older player. But I do think it will only become more difficult for him. It's a long season, and it's a really physical game. And no matter how old you are, it's difficult on the body, right? So um, I would be a little more hesitant to say I was wrong and that I'm in on Ryan Suter, but I agree that I have been pleasantly surprised with his play so far. I was wrong about maybe the ceiling of what we could see from him, but I'm
Mhm.
not so sure that I'm ready to say, like great signing. You know, this was really helpful for the season or whatever. It's been helpful so far for sure. I'd agree there, but I guess I'm a little more hesitant on that front. And I don't want to sort of have my cake and eat it too when I say Broberg is awesome and I'm ready to buy in after 5 games. And I'm aware that that is a little bit hypocritical, but I think that the difference is that you can project some growth in Broberg's game, since we haven't seen a whole lot from him, whereas we've seen 20 years of Ryan Suter. So um, that's sort of my thoughts there. Um, I mentioned last week, I believe, and I'll bring it up again with this Islanders game. Pareko played a lot better without Letty last night, and I think that's a historical trend. I think he tends to play better without Nick Letty. Um, do you think do you think they should take Letty off the top pair? And if so, where do you think they should put him? Do you think they should play him at all? Is another question that we can ask. But defend your boy.
Um, yes. Uh, Lower, yes, I think is the order that went in. So yes, I think Nick Leddy should come off the top pair. I think we've seen enough to say that it just isn't working. Leddy doesn't have it this year, and he can earn his way back on it. I don't think. I
Mhm.
mean,
Yeah,
we signed him for a 4x4 contract. It's not like the expectation was for him to ever play top ice minutes. He just earned it in years previous, and this year, I think he
it's
has to
true.
go back to earning it. So I would move up Philip Broberg. I think I've seen enough to at least like give him a run and see what it looks like. But in how Justin Falk really complements Broberg's game because he can play more reserved and such. I think Pareko can also complement his game in a different way. either we could see Broberg lean more into like rush offense or just offense in general, and Pareko be sort of that stopper role, or they both just form this really, really solid defensive pair that knows how to move, like accelerate the offensive play.
Yeah.
Uh, and I don't know, that sounds really exciting to me. So I would take Letty off. I would move Broberg up, and I would probably. It depends. If he plays how he has been, honestly, well, if everyone were to play the rest of the games as they have been so far, I would have Suter Falk and Letty and IDK on the third pair. Um,
Whichever
more,
rookie is in rotation for that game,
yeah.
or young guy, I guess.
More realistically, I would probably expect things to balance out and put Letty with Falk on the second pair,
Yeah.
because I think theoretically there's upside there for that to work. And then probably Suter and someone on the third pair, but could be, I don't know, could be someone else. But yeah, anyways, I would move Letty off the top pair and put Broberg there.
Yeah, I think it's no secret that I am mad at Nick Leddy, and I'm pretty disappointed with his performance. So shocker, right? It's no surprise that I would agree with you. Take Leddy off the top pair, and then I agree. I think Broberg moving up to play with Pareko would be my top choice, but I think that my second choice would be just to make Broberg Falk the top pair, honestly. And that is only after trying out Broberg Pareko. If that doesn't look like it works, and if it looks like it would continue to work with Broberg and Falk, then I think that's sort of the way I would go about it. But I agree. I think if we were to see a top pair of Broberg and Pareko, that could be like really exciting, really fun. I think Pareko still profiles as a solid puck mover. He's got I've mentioned it a lot of times, that wicked slap shot. He really hits that thing hard. So I think sort of the ways that Broberg and Pareko's skill sets could complement each other as well could be really exciting. And I've sort of mentioned that the lack of offensive talent that we see in Nick Leddy means that whenever Leddy Pareko do go on offense, it is sort of at the detriment or at the sacrifice to the defense. But I think Broberg is a more capable offensive player, and so I think that balance um, could be handled a little better with Broberg and Pareko. And I would agree. I think Pareko is definitely the stronger defender, and I think what we could see is this sort of the grizzled vet sort of taking over that defensive defender role, and sort of maybe helping Broberg out, and maybe helping make up for some of his mistakes if they do happen. Sort of like what we saw from Ryan Suter when he was playing with Matthew Kessel in the preseason. We saw a fair bit of that. And then in terms of what to do with Nick Leddy, I think based on recent play, I'd agree Suter Falk on the second pair, and then Leddy and whoever on the bottom. But if I was projecting out over a full season, I would say Leddy is probably more of a second pair kind of guy.
Right.
So I think we're sort of on the same page as far as that goes. Yeah, I think that's all we have to talk about for defense. We've got a pretty solid matchup against the Carolina Hurricanes tomorrow night on Saturday. Let's see, what time is that game? I believe 6 p.m. Central Time. So that'll be a big test, arguably the biggest test so far of the season, if not that Vegas game. And then next week will be an even harder week, I think, than what the Blues have faced so far. So it only gets more difficult from here. So we're going to be back probably early next week to recap the Carolina game and discuss some more of our thoughts on the Blues play and their outlook for next week and all that. So if you wanna follow along and hear us talk about all that, then subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow the podcast wherever you listen. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok at Note News Pod, and we really appreciate all that. I think that'll do it for us this time. We'll see you next time on Note News. Let's go Blues.
Let's go Blues.